Good day all. This is Mary Harper with the Florida Association for the Education of Young Children, and I'm going to talk to you briefly today about the Legislative Watch. We're about 4 weeks into the legislative session, and while there's not a whole lot of rapid movement like we saw last season, 2013, we are seeing some movement on some bills, and we want to bring them to your attention so that you are fully aware of what's going on in the legislature. As you know, each each week we bring these legislative watches to you in an effort to promote the Florida Association for the Education of Young Children's public policy platform. We have three general areas with which we focus our efforts. The first being the quality of early childhood programs. The second being the work, compensation, and professionalization of early childhood educators. And our third area is access and funding to statewide early childhood programs and systems. And of course, the intent is to protect the state's most valuable asset, commodity, and future, which is young children. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly go over some of the areas with which we've seen some movement and that we want you to be aware. And then I'm going to, at the conclusion, review the Legislative Watch for those of you that are new to our Legislative Watch. I'm going to orient you to how it's structured, what you can look forward to each week, that sort of thing. So first I'm going to begin with a summarization for those who are familiar with our Legislative Watches. And then for those who are not as familiar, please continue to watch, and I'll go over how our Legislative Watch document, or e-blast, is structured. So the first thing I'm going to discuss is the Senate budgeting. It's already been through appropriations, and we're seeing no increase in dollars for early childhood programs in the areas of program quality, access, or professional development systems. It's one of those years where we'll see a lot of tightening of what's currently being offered and how those programs are being administered, but we're not going to necessarily see a big increase in funding at this point. And we'll be looking for that probably in the next few years to support program quality as well as access. So let's begin with our first area, which is promotion of quality early childhood programs. And we will focus on, we have four areas with which our areas come. The statewide program assessment, QRIS, developmentally appropriate curriculum tied to universal standards and appropriate assessments, promotion of accreditation and gold seal or the highest standards related to quality, and appropriate ratios, which we know support not only children but teachers in their application of developmentally appropriate practice. In that area, we're seeing one of the most powerful pieces of legislation that we will probably see this season, and it's called Early Learning and Child Care Regulations. It really is working at tightening up our quality issues around standard implementation. We see that there's a companion bill, there's two bills. There's House Bill 7069 and Senate Bill 1702. These are companion bills. Their verbiage is very similar. There are some slight differences, but overall they're all supporting the same kind of thing. What we see here is that it revises the requirements and standards related to the Wilson Act, and specifically it's going to talk about school readiness and some voluntary pre-kindergarten. And it includes not only child care facilities, it includes both public and private schools, as well as family child care homes, both large and traditional. And it revises the exemption for certain licensing standards, and it revises the duties of the Office of Early Learning and Early Learning Coalitions. There are some other pieces that the language has changed. It takes that Wilson Act and it kind of omits something and adds more explicit language in other places. This is just an overview. We see that the term 3 years old to school age is being eliminated, and we're seeing the term birth through school age, specifically in regards to school readiness. Additionally, children have always been allowed to attend 5 days. They must attend 5 days a week. It also has provisions for public and private schools. They must substantially comply with DCF licensing standards so that we see that children are getting the same kind of quality regardless of the facility with which that is being deployed. Family Child Care Homes has a lot of information. It talks about standards, transfer of ownership, license must be displayed, screening and assessments are required, and substitute credentialing will be mandatory so that we can be assured that children are in quality care regardless of whether or not the proprietor is on site. Also, we see criteria for teachers related to school readiness. They must have a CDA. Or they could have an AS with many hours in 6 hours in early childhood, or an AS in early childhood, or an AA with 6 hours in early childhood and 480 hours of experience, or a baccalaureate degree in early childhood. It goes all the way up, but we're definitely seeing now that there's a criteria that people who are working with young children must be familiar with child development and what young children need. The other thing that we're seeing is a new language related to discipline and what will be considered acceptable and not acceptable in all areas with which children are cared. There's also compliance. So when you are if a child care facility or program is in a violation, they would need to post that. And in the event they receive too many violations, the Early Learning Coalition will contact parents to let them know that the program with which their children are enrolled is not meeting the criteria as outlined by legislation. So we'll keep you abreast of the changes. What's very interesting about this particular set of bills, these two companion bills, is that there's another set of two companion bills, House Bill 303 and Senate Bill 394, that are in licensing of facilities that offer health and human services. Again, it really targets those family daycare, childcare homes and large family childcare homes, and really goes in about advertising, licensing, how to provide programmatic compliance, those types of things. So we will see some changes. We've got 4 bills that are all basically speaking the same speak. So then they're all getting some traction. So we'll keep you abreast of what's happening in that domain. In the area of establishment of professional development systems, we're really not seeing anything right now that is substantial, other than the fingerprinting process in K through 12 will now be open to a national database. And as you know, when we're looking at legislation that fits in this category of establishment of professional development systems, we're looking for standardized competencies, professional development and training registries, access to quality professional education, and a career ladder. And that is supported throughout the state of Florida. Further, our next area is increased access and funding to state early childhood education programs. And that would be anything from VPK, school readiness, health programs, programs for children with exceptional needs, those types of things. And we really only have a couple that are significant. Students with Disabilities, House Bill 5103, establishes the Florida Personal Learning Account Program. And it provides parents and students with disabilities with more flexibility in customizing their children's education. So to be eligible, you must be a Florida resident. You must enroll in a K through 5th grade, which would affect our K through 3 teachers, and be identified as having a special need, and have an IEP or a Florida Educational Finance Program, according to the matrix. And parents may be reimbursed for educational services that are private tutoring, virtual education curriculum. And so this now offers families who are working to support their children's outcomes with more resources. And so that's a big win for our families and young children in this state. So the other one that we see is a dramatically expanding health care to underserved children. We saw a huge movement last year related to Florida Healthy Kids and Kid Care. And we're seeing a similar thing. We have 2 companion bills. And this one is looking to tighten up some of the standards, make sure that all that rolled out last year is in good standing. And additionally, we'll see an increase in the appropriation as noted below. And it's significant. So another big win for children in obtaining health care coverage. That's it related to what's up and coming in the Legislative Watch. If you're familiar with the Legislative Watch e-blast, you're welcome to tune out now. For those of you who are not as familiar, I'm going to go over the structure very briefly of how your e-blast will come to you. So this would be the Legislative Watch in the format that it will come. It, again, just orients you to our outcomes, what we're looking to talk about, and how we're looking to support young children and their families, as well as child care professionals. The Legislative Watch is divided, as it should be, into 3 areas: promotion of quality early childhood programs, and then we list the bills as they come to us. And then there's the establishment of professional development systems, and any bills that would fall under that, and then increased access and any bills that would fall underneath that. All of this can be tracked at the Florida Senate. So all you have to do is, if there's a bill you're interested in, you'll want to go to the Florida Senate, and if you see up here at the top there's a bill number, you just type in your bill number. And in this case I was looking at the companion bills for the early learning. If I want to track it, I just hit track, and then it will track it and put it in my little folder. Of course, you have to have a login and sign in to do this, but that's a simple way for you to track any bills that are relevant to you. Another wonderful thing about this is it also lists the House bills. So I don't have to toggle between the Senate and the House. I can just click all bills that I think are relevant, and then it should track them for me regardless. So just remember, you'll need your email and password to log in, and then you're all set to follow legislation. That's it for today. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to talking with you next week.